Impact Wrestling Knockouts champion Jordynne Grace has been in the headlines the last few days, talking about a former WWE superstar she'd like to see join the Knockouts division. Plus, we're going to talk about her controversial social media comments over the weekend. Plus, a little bit about the upcoming Impact Wrestling television tapings. All this and more in today's Impact Wrestling news. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into today in the world of Impact Wrestling, and I do primarily today want to talk about Jordynne Grace. I know there's been a lot of discussion about her comments, etc., and there's a couple of different stories I do want to discuss. The first one I want to discuss is a possible addition to the Knockouts division that the Knockouts champion would like to see. This is quite an interesting story, actually, because Jordynne Grace has said that she would like to see a former NXT superstar Dakota Kai in Impact Wrestling, even going as far as to say that she embodies the spirit of the Impact Wrestling Knockouts division. Jordynne Grace is all for Dakota Kai in Impact Wrestling. Now, Dakota Kai is one of the many names released from their WWE contracts over the course of the last 2 years as budget cuts hit WWE. Now, outside of WWE, many professional wrestlers have found success after their release. They've gone on to the likes of Impact, the likes of AEW, New Japan Pro Wrestling, MLW, NWA, and found varying levels of success, as well as just staying on the independent scene and having quite a lot of success there as well. And Jordynne Grace believes that Dakota Kai could very well fit in and be the perfect fit, frankly, for the Impact Wrestling Knockouts roster. Speaking on the Angle podcast, Grace named Dakota Kai as one wrestler outside of Impact she would like to face for her Knockouts championship. She said, quote, "So this is such a hard question because I feel like AEW has signed a lot of people, but someone that would be awesome to wrestle is Dakota Kai. I don't think she got her full credit or full due at WWE, and I think Impact would be a really great place for her to go. She has a very unique look, a unique wrestling style, and I feel like the Knockouts division, she kind of personifies that." Now, Dakota Kai herself, in her post-WWE career, she recently trademarked the name King Kota, but has not actually wrestled a match since her release by WWE. In the meantime, of course, Jordynne Grace has another name to worry about, that being one Mia Yim. It looks like she's scheduled to face off against her in the future for her Knockouts championship. Dakota Kai is an interesting one. I agree with Jordynne Grace with what she's saying here. I think she'd be a perfect fit for Impact Wrestling, to be honest with you. I think she'd be great. The reason that it didn't work out in WWE is because, for whatever reason, Vince McMahon, Bruce Pritchard, the brain trust, if you want to use that term loosely, in WWE, just didn't believe in her, and that was it. There was a period of time last year, and it was right before WWE started performing in front of live crowds again, and during the time where they just returned to performing in front of live crowds again, and they were having all of these dark matches before Raw, before SmackDown, and they have them anyway usually, but there was a real big push on them that they were going to be returning to touring. They needed more names on the main roster, so we heard about these dark matches, and sometimes they'd appear on main event as well at the Thunderdome before Raws and SmackDowns, and then this happened again once they went on the road, and Dakota Kai was involved in a lot of them. And essentially what happened in those dark matches, because the name, and it's just so funny to look back in retrospect, so much can change in a year, but the names at the time that was part of these dark matches or these main event tapings were Karrion Kross, gone, Bronson Reed, gone, Dakota Kai, gone, Isaiah Swerve Scott Hit Row, gone. All of these names were getting involved in them. I think Tommaso Ciampa was involved in some of them. That eventually he did get called up and he's on the Raw roster. But Dakota Kai was part of that group. She was part of that group of names that were getting these tryout matches, these dark matches, and was going to get called to the main roster. Other names at the time were Tegan Nox, gone. Shotzi, of course, is now still part of the main roster on SmackDown. But the key thing of all of those names I've just spoken about there is they did all get called up. Now, eventually they all got released, but they did all get called up. But Dakota Kai didn't. She didn't get called up. She stayed in NXT. She resumed her feud with Raquel Gonzalez at the time, then became tag team champions at NXT Stand and Deliver earlier this year, and eventually got released. I think her contract was due to expire as well. She had turned down a contract extension with WWE too. Now, there is a variety of reasons as to why she maybe got released. One could be that her contract was coming up, and WWE thought, why would we call someone up to the main roster that's got only an X amount of time left on their contract? That could be one thing. But realistically, the main thing is that Dakota Kai is a little bit older than the usual profile of female wrestler they have on the roster. And I guess that Vince McMahon or Bruce Pritchard or whoever in WWE just felt, nah, I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling her to be a talent that we can utilize on the main roster. And because of that, she didn't get called up. She didn't get called up, and she stayed in NXT. And the issue was, and this is the issue of any of those people that were part of the black and gold version of NXT, is they don't fit. They just don't fit in the current version of NXT. So she was kind of stuck. That is why Impact Wrestling is the perfect place for her, because in this post-WWE career that she will have, look at her options. She could do work in Japan for Stardom, and I think that would be a good move for her, actually, if she wanted to pursue that. If she was going to wrestle domestically in the United States, you would say Impact would be the place to go, because AEW has some very talented female wrestlers on their roster, but in terms of the presentation, there is still a massive problem with AEW in terms of how many female matches per show they have. I mean, you look at someone like Thunder Rosa, won the AEW Women's World Championship, and she barely appears on television, or the matches don't feel as important, or the championship doesn't feel as important. You got Jade Cargill, who certainly is getting featured on television. I think they do the presentation well with her, and just because you've got two women's championships, a secondary women's championships, doesn't mean your division is being booked well. There are still massive issues. Whereas in comparison with Impact Wrestling, you've got a Knockouts division that is main eventing television shows and pay-per-views. You've got Knockouts Tag Team Championships that could be booked better, but in terms of the comparison of any company with female Tag Team Championships, I think Impact's doing a fine job when it comes to that. So I think she would do very well in Impact Wrestling. I really do. And I think that's why people like Mia Yim chose to go to Impact over other companies, because they know it's where they'll be featured the most. And it's where they'll have the most television time. And Impact can still pay very well. They're still a well-backed company. And just because you have the biggest audience, like an AEW, doesn't necessarily mean you'll have the best presentation. And I would put Impact Wrestling's presentation of the Knockouts division up against any presentation that AEW would do when it comes to female wrestling. Of course, it wasn't the only thing, though, that Jordynne Grace had been talking about over the weekend. Jordynne Grace had a lot of controversy over the weekend about her comments about Chris Benoit. Now, recently, Jordynne Grace addressed the topic of Benoit on Twitter in several tweets. She stated that she personally doesn't believe he would have been able to keep up with the wrestlers of today because he would have not been able to remember the matches, and stated she doesn't believe his body of work deserves any respect because of the way that Benoit's life ended. Of course, we know the just horrific circumstances as to what happened to Benoit, his wife, and his son in those last few days. It's horrible. Of course, in 2007, Benoit murdered his wife Nancy and his son Daniel before eventually taking his own life. This is the tweet that Jordynne Grace said, quote, "This is going to be the coldest take I ever tweet on this app. I already know y'all are going to be mad. I don't think Benoit could 100% hang with most of the present day best wrestlers. He would not be able to remember the matches. Also, may he burn in hell. Amen." Now, Patricia Parker, the real person behind Jordynne Grace, issued a statement that she regrets angering or hurting anyone that was close to the situation, and as a way of trying to squeeze some positivity out of a negative situation, she has pledged $5,000 to the Concussion Legacy Foundation, which of course is formerly known as the Sports Legacy Institute, and hopes to reach an overall goal of $20,000 with the help of donations. Chris Jericho and Chavo Guerrero, of course two men who knew Chris Benoit very well, are supporting Parker's decision. David Benoit, who of course is Chris Benoit's eldest son, is also supporting the decision. As a further means of extending an olive branch, David Benoit and Jordynne Grace appeared together on an Instagram live stream where they agreed to put the situation behind them. She released a full statement basically saying what I just said. The Benoit situation is always a highly emotional and highly... It's just horrible to think about, really. And some people are better than others at separating the art from the artist. And I myself still find it very, very difficult. And I don't think I'll ever not be able to. You can't. It's very difficult to compartmentalize this situation. And I think my biggest takeaway when I saw that Jordynne Grace tweet about it was that, irrespective of your view on Chris Benoit, and I think most people probably have a similar view on the person after what he did and the way his life ended. Whatever your view is of Chris Benoit, the wrestler, for the career that he had and the great matches that he had and the great memories that you have of watching him on television or live if you were able to do so. It was a tweet that didn't need to be said, I don't think. And that's not because I'm sitting here defending Chris Benoit, because I'm certainly not. You can't defend him. It's impossible. And I wouldn't want to either. But it was one of those situations where, why are you doing this tweet? Why are you putting this out there? And it was one of those things that I myself perceived as, it's just unnecessary. You know, it felt like a tweet of, I want to get some attention. I want to get some people talking about me. And, you know, irrespective of the subject matter. And this is a really dark and sensitive subject matter that didn't need a social media post about it. Because as she mentions in her statement, and I really do credit her, to be fair, for the statement and trying to turn this into a positive situation, it doesn't completely take away the negative. What she said, and what happened when it comes to her actions. But at least she's turning it into a positive, and she's reached out to the people close to the Benoit family, i.e. his son and his close friends, to apologize and try and make amends. Because that's the thing as well. And I would recommend to watch the Dark Side of the Ring documentary, the two-parter on the Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit tragedy, because with all of this going on, and when you talk about Chris Benoit, or you talk about his history or his matches or his legacy, whatever that is, people get like there are family members involved. You know, 3 people died, but 2 innocent people died in this. One of them was a child. One of them was a wife. That is never okay, and we kind of forget about that when we talk about Chris Benoit. People try and, I guess, glamorize or reflect positively on his career. You still have to remember, people are dead. People are no longer around because of this, because of that guy, because of his actions. And that's not acceptable. And when you talk, and I understand what she was saying in her tweet was basically, you know, what he did was reprehensible, and it is. But there are still people around that are feeling the after effects of that, i.e. his son, i.e. you know, Benoit's wider extended family. That is still, it must be an awful, awful subject. And when you go on social media to see him trending because some wrestler has said, I think nowadays he would be able to hang with us, you go, it doesn't. The Benoit issue is way bigger than pro wrestling and whether he could hang with the people of nowadays. It's just it's not about that. It is not about that. It's about, you know, people losing their life, and that is not right. That is not right. So I commend her for apologizing, and I commend her for making amends, and I commend her for the charitable donation, because the Sports Legacy Institute, the Concussion Legacy Foundation, rather, do good work and have done good work in progressing knowledge about the effects of concussion, CTE, etc. So that is the latest when it comes to Jordynne Grace. But anyway, guys, be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.